"Hey sir, leave your beautiful wife behind and go away out of nowhere." It turned out that 4 burly bandits were looking lustfully at my wife, almost salivating over her. In stark contrast, my youthful appearance and my wife, who you wouldn't believe was over 40, was clearly attracting the attention of these young people. On the other hand, I'm almost 50 years old. I have an appearance that doesn't really match hers. Sometimes I'm even mistaken as her father, which paints the picture of a pretty plain-looking guy here. It seems like I'm recognized as her husband, which might be a bit inappropriate given the situation. But there's a part of me that's a little relieved. Since her youth, my wife has always attracted the attention of men, so these flirtatious approaches are probably nothing new to her. However, witnessing her being harassed right in front of me is something I have never experienced, leaving me momentarily lost in thought. Ignoring them probably wouldn't make them back down, and yelling would be undignified for a grown man. They told me to leave, but as I remained in place, one of the impatient young men reached out to my wife. At that moment, she pushed his hand away, asking if he was ready for this. Almost in harmony, the young people expressed a collective chorus of surprise, but the same words inadvertently came out of my mouth. Looking back, this incident became the catalyst for me to regain control over my life. My name is Bob. I'm turning 57 this year. At 63, I'm considered tall for my age group, still maintain decent muscles, and while I'm not exactly agile, I believe I have a good amount of dexterity. So, even if I'm bothered by some idiot, I'm not easily intimidated. The reason I still maintain a muscular physique at this age probably stems from the time I spent in the military. When I was younger, I served in the military. It seems that at one point I was sent to a country torn apart by civil war. There, under the orders of rebel forces, I genuinely tried to protect civilians involved in daily fighting. However, the price of this service was the loss of my memory and my right arm. Waking up in a hospital, seeing myself covered in bandages was more painful than the physical pain itself. In addition to the pain, not remembering who I was, not having a name to call my own, was even more difficult. I could understand the words and know the things necessary to live, but my identity was completely erased. In the midst of despair, my only beacon of hope was my wife Catherine. Throughout my hospitalization, she visited me daily, without missing a single day. At that time, I wasn't married and, honestly, I didn't even know who she was. But she was always by my side. Even if I forgot about her, it would be great if we could create lots of memories from now on. That's what she told me when I was released from the hospital. We got married, and she took my last name. Having lost part of my body and my memory, naturally, I had no place in the military and had to be discharged. I was then awarded a large financial compensation, enough to live without working for the rest of my life if I was frugal. However, I didn't want to just sit still. I started looking for a job. Naturally, I couldn't find my place in the army and had to be discharged. I then received generous financial compensation, enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life if I was frugal. However, I refused to stand still. I didn't want to just do nothing, so I started looking for a job. Few jobs were available to me as I lost my dominant arm and my memory. I was rejected from several interviews, but eventually a small cleaning company gave me a chance. I was assigned to places where I could work even without an arm, like cleaning offices or schools. I couldn't remember my past, but my life became fulfilling. Above all, upon returning home, I found happiness with my dear wife Catherine. I decided this was my life now and found joy in spending the rest of my days with her. Following her suggestion, I retired at age 55. Fortunately, we had enough savings to live comfortably in retirement, and Catherine also worked. Although I had planned to continue working as long as possible, I chose to retire so as not to worry Catherine. However, he didn't have many hobbies. So, when I retired, I had a lot of free time. If I had to choose something close to a hobby, it would be my daily walks. I started doing them almost every day. On a beautiful Monday morning, as usual, I prepared breakfast for Catherine and said goodbye to her. After carrying out light household chores, I left the house at around 9 a.m. You could call me a stay-at-home husband since I mainly took care of domestic activities. It was routine to stop at the supermarket on the way back from my morning walk to buy dinner. On the walking route, I passed a large housing complex, and in front of it, there was a large park with no play equipment. My favorite spot was a bench in the corner, where I always took a break. The European design of the park, contrasting with the open space typical of an American park, somehow created a welcoming atmosphere. Sitting on the bench, I took a book out of my eco bag and started reading a mystery novel. I was in the middle of an engaging story when, around the same age or maybe a little older, a man approached with a gentle smile. He expressed a warm greeting, and even though I was a bit introverted, I responded awkwardly. The man, far from being upset, pointed to the bench, suggesting that he could sit there. I noticed he was taking up the love seat and excused myself, moving to the edge of the seat to make room. He introduced himself as Jason, and, noticing my confused expression, tried to clarify the reason for the sudden approach. He apologized for being close and shared that he just wanted to talk for a bit. He said it was the first time anyone other than Sarine had liked his boring stories, and I couldn't help but feel a unique emotion as I shared this moment of connection. Jason interrupted me with a soft smile before I could finish my sentence. He noticed my daily presence in the park and commented on the absence of recreation equipment, prompting a brief reflection on the definition of the place. In the middle of the conversation, he proposed trying some supplements and, suddenly, he revealed himself to be a health code salesman. Jason's direct attitude contrasted with the seemingly harmless offer. With a decisive gesture, he placed a pill in my hand. The idea of trying something unknown crossed my mind, but, with the caution of someone receiving a free sample, I pondered the decision. Even with Jason's apparent calm, the force with which he placed the pill in my hand created discomfort. Upon accepting the sample, a sudden headache hit me. As Jason walked away, calling my name, his kindness remained seared into my mind. However, the memory of Catherine's warning about the dangerousness of the supplement arose. She suggested I throw it away, considering the stranger a potential threat. Concern grew when Jason, when calling my name, seemed to know details that I had not shared directly. Catherine's suggestion to change my walking route gained relevance, and I decided to follow her advice. Uncertainty hovered, and the feeling that something was out of place intensified. Days later, while exploring new streets, a near-tragic incident occurred. A sudden push almost made me fall off an overpass. Surprisingly, there was no sign of the attacker. The scare remained, and the paranoia increased, culminating in other incidents, such as falling flower vases and the attempted fire at my house. The unknown of Jason's true nature and the series of disturbing events left me on high alert. Each step forward, now permeated by the shadow of suspicion, became a journey fraught with uncertainty and potential danger. Fortunately, I immediately realized that it was just a small fire, but now concerns arise for my wife's safety. Reluctantly, I decided to call the police. While we know they cannot provide constant protection, they were assured that they would increase patrols and be ready to respond to any eventuality. The presence of the police brought some comfort, but my main concern remained Catherine's safety. For about a week, things remained peaceful, perhaps due to fear of facing police presence. He was willing to accept the lack of contact with Jason as long as Catherine was safe. Catherine also showed relief, and we returned to our normal routine. Then, suddenly, the proposal that we take a vacation came up. Catherine suggested a trip abroad, specifically to Spain, a destination we had considered for our honeymoon. Remembering that it had been almost 10 years since our last significant trip, I enthusiastically agreed. Watching Catherine's excitement when planning the trip sparked the same excitement in me. We started planning, and my anxiety about the experience of traveling abroad increased. Although the lack of my right arm, a result of past events unknown to me, sometimes reminded me of phantom pains, I pushed away these negative thoughts and focused on anticipating the trip. The day of departure arrived, and, even though it wasn't my first time abroad, the idea of boarding a plane brought a mix of emotions. Despite the insecurity related to my unknown past, I focused on the joys of the upcoming trip. We arrived at the airport early, ready for a week of rest. While I decided to get something to drink, Catherine expressed a desire to explore the airport. Her childlike enthusiasm, despite her 40 years, brought a smile to my face. We were walking together when, suddenly, we were stopped by a group of men. The rude voice resounded in the air, suggesting that I leave that beautiful lady and go home. The fright made me step back, pulling Catherine with me. She tripped and fell, and I immediately knelt beside her, facing the men as I asked them what they wanted. Her loud laughter echoed, and the situation became tense. "We'll take care of her now. You can stay," one of the men said with a dismissive gesture, as if he were chasing away an animal. One of them extends his hand towards Catherine, but she responds firmly, pushing his hand away forcefully. Looking at the men in an oddly sharp tone, she says, "You're ready for what's coming, huh?" Not just the men, but even I was surprised. Did Catherine have martial arts training? I never knew that in all the time we were together. But maybe she learned something when she was younger. Could a confrontation be about to happen here? There was no way she was going to ruin the upcoming vacation she was so looking forward to. Besides, I couldn't even imagine her getting into a physical fight. That means it's up to me to intervene. Stunned, I look at Catherine's face, and she looks back. Her expression seems like a mixture of emotions that is difficult to describe. Our eyes meet for a few seconds, but suddenly, Catherine looks away, biting her lower lip. I can't fully understand Catherine's feelings, and for some reason, men don't seem to take any action. The situation is at an impasse, with everyone in the neighborhood feeling awkward. "I'm sorry, I apologize, but why are you apologizing?" Confused, I try to ask Catherine for clarification, but the men seem to have run out of patience. "Hey, don't ignore us like that." A man roughly grabs the collar of my jacket and forces me to stay still. His strength, coming from a body that looked almost 65 years old, was imposing. Another man, surprisingly, lets go of my collar and seems to want a fair fight. What is he thinking? I can't understand Catherine's intentions. I'm paralyzed with confusion, and honestly, I don't feel like getting involved. I can't imagine coming out of a fight with such a big, injured man at almost 60 years old unscathed. I know better than anyone how vulnerable my body is to impact. Seeing my distress, the man doesn't hesitate and raises his fist, anticipating the damage to my left cheek. I flinch, but suddenly everything around me moves in slow motion. His right hand is slowly coming towards me. Seeing your attack, my body reacts on its own. My left hand counters, almost as if it's being pulled directly towards his left breast. The next moment, he was lying in front of me, eyes rolling back. My heart is beating fast. I tried to calm down, but strangely my mind felt incredibly calm, as if someone else had taken control of my body. It made everything seem so far away that a woman's scream echoed from somewhere. She must have seen me hit the fallen man. Only then was I able to move again, calling out to the man foaming at the mouth, completely still, but there was no response, no breathing. I tried to feel the pulse on his wrist and chest, but nothing. I turned pale. "Hey, come on, breathe." My attempts at CPR, done as best I remembered, were in vain. The man remained motionless, with the other men just standing there in shock, not knowing what to do. I kept trying desperately to revive him. "Please breathe, excuse me, Jason." The man who gave me some supplements in the park the other day pushed me away as tears welled in my eyes. He took a machine from his bag, perhaps a defibrillator, and placed it on the man's chest. He pressed a button, and the man's body jolted. A few seconds later, he, who had been drooling before, came back to life. He spat out saliva and, as if realizing what had happened, he shivered. The men exchanged glances with Jason and left with a nod. It seemed like they knew Jason. Still confused and shaken, Jason smiled at me. "Let's talk somewhere. We can sit down and relax." I canceled the trip. Neither Catherine nor I felt like taking a vacation. Later, I explained the entire situation to the security officers who had arrived, speaking objectively. I was the aggressor, so it would be their duty to hand me over to the police. However, the man I had heard did not press any charges. With Jason testifying on my behalf, confirming it was self-defense, I was let go without any legal complications. We could barely have made our flight. Neither Catherine nor I felt like we could enjoy the trip, so we decided to cancel it. With Jason, who wanted to talk somewhere quiet, we headed home. I had planned to meet him at a local cafe, but surprisingly, it was Catherine who suggested we talk at home. It was supposed to be the first time that Catherine and Jason had met, as Catherine seemed to detest Jason for giving me some half-baked pills. I wondered why she would invite a man like that to our home, after everything he did for me during the airport mess. As soon as we got home, we got straight to the point, without any small talk. So where should we start? We had coffee, and I made Jason feel comfortable. He shrugged his shoulders with his palms facing up. To be honest, I have no idea what's going on with me right now. If it's okay, could you tell me who you are first? Jason nodded slowly, his eyes closed. Of course. My profession is medical. I retired from active practice. As for our connection, Bob, you were once my patient. Oh, when I was still in the army, you had a serious injury, and I was out of it for a long time. So, I don't remember. Looking at where my right arm used to be. I started to talk about that time in gratitude, but Jason interrupted me. There's no need to thank me. I don't deserve this. What do you mean? Taking a deep breath, Jason exhaled slowly as he stared at the ceiling. What Catherine told you about her past and then, my past, that I can't even remember. I told Jason everything I remembered, that I used to be a soldier, how I lost my right arm in the line of duty. And how he had no memories of that time. Throughout my explanation, Jason listened intently, a mixture of sympathy and pity in his eyes. When I finished, he simply said, I see. Turning to Catherine, he asked if I should tell him the truth. Catherine remained silent, and I interpreted her silence as consent. Jason began to reveal the truth to me, asking me to remain calm throughout the explanation. Bob, first, you were a normal soldier, part of a special ops team. Wait, so you're saying I wasn't in the army but in a special ops unit? So Catherine lied to me. Honestly, the details about my past, whether I was a soldier or part of some elite squad, didn't matter to me, but finding out that Catherine might have lied was a shock. Catherine's silence seemed to confirm Jason's opinion. Please calm down, Bob. I'm sure Catherine had her reasons for not telling you the whole truth. She wouldn't lie out of spite. Catherine's face remained unreadable. Although you may not immediately understand or accept this, let me continue. You were part of a team sent on a mission to quell a civil war in a certain country. As for who exactly ordered this mission, only the top brass knew, so even I don't know the details. Either way, you went to that country, and thanks to your efforts, the war ended. Jason was being complimentary, his pride evident, but the shock of Catherine's possible deception made me feel like I was listening to someone else's heroic story. I tried to remain composed, but what Jason said next left me stunned. You were extraordinary, after all. You alone took the lives of 96 people. I must have looked ridiculous, my mouth hanging open. Maybe Catherine was crying when she saw my reaction, but I couldn't tell. Of course, under the circumstances, you cannot be compared to some random criminals. It is probably more accurate to say the past. In any case, you neutralized the enemy forces with overwhelming power. At the same time, questions arose. There is value in peace that comes at the cost of other people's lives, taking other people's lives. I was prepared for the possibility, especially since I believed I had lost my arm in combat, but 96 people, that number was too high, and I couldn't hide my shock. Bob, it's all in the past. You don't need to feel guilty about it now. But the main point is yet to come. I couldn't imagine anything more shocking. My breathing became erratic, and my vision blurred. My brain, unable to accept reality, seems to be trying to escape, passing out. Boom! With a loud noise, I slapped both cheeks. Tell me, please continue. I will never run away, I will face my past. Someone at the top of the organization ordered you poor injured and recovering people to be withdrawn. Why? Target my life. A soldier should not have an individuality that should be the same for any unit. If each one starts to question their actions, the chain of command will not work, and the entire unit may fall apart. I will skip the details due to the length. Firstly, the reason you were injured was that, in battle, you showed such an overwhelming presence that the remaining enemies they could not tolerate. A momentary lapse in judgment caused you to be ambushed by several enemy soldiers and lose your right arm. I felt a pulse in my arm. The local hospital had limited resources, and the treatment offered was only palliative. If you were a less fortunate patient, you might have been neglected, but the organization would not abandon its hero. Even though you were unconscious, you were immediately transferred to the United States, where I met Jason. "Hi," he said. I underwent surgery, and although my severed right arm was not restored, I managed to survive. It seems that I had already lost my memory at that time, a natural assumption due to the severe physical injuries. My brain must have suffered a significant shock, resulting in memory loss. That makes sense. No, you still had your memories, because the one who stole them was none other than me, Jason, he confessed, rubbing his forehead hesitantly. War. He explained that he had no choice. It appears you indicated to close friends your desire to leave the unit, and someone reported it to superiors. The decision to deal with you was made because of the potential risk you posed by wanting to leave a secret unit. There were probably concerns about information leaks, but there was someone who opposed his removal, his superior. This man cited his accomplishments and character, begging for his life. Even rejected, he persisted at the cost of his own life to save yours. So you're saying he died in my place? I asked, shocked. Jason looked genuinely sorry and nodded deeply. His gaze shifted to Catherine's father. Without thinking, I got up from my chair, knocking over a mug of coffee, but no one seemed to mind. It was mind-blowing to think that my beloved wife's father died because of me. Given his sacrifice, you were saved, but it wasn't as simple as letting you go free. I was asked to erase your memories. Jason explained that despite various methods, he finally found a drug that could induce amnesia. Although it was illegal, he consumed you to lose your own memories, allowing you to recover well in regards to yours. Smoothly speaking, we managed to erase them without any problems. As soon as you were ready to be discharged, you were united with Caffeine, your former boss's daughter, and led a happy life. Jason concluded the story with a deep emotion, looking intently into my eyes. Now, why did I appear before you? To observe your condition. I see. You came to check if my memories really disappeared, I commented. Jason clapped his hands and nodded exaggeratedly. You're quick to understand. But isn't that contradictory? If your job is to make sure my memory disappears, why do you tell me everything about the past? Jason smiled mischievously and explained that it was simple. The organization intended that once your memories were permanently gone, you would drink the amnesia drug again. However, to avoid suspicion, he chose to be transparent and make you drink willingly. After all, everything would be erased from your memory anyway. Why not reveal everything about the organization here, Bob? If you accept this, everything will be resolved in the blink of an eye. Jason presented a single pill in the palm of his hand. This is the drug that erases memory. Yes, it is a safer version than the one you took previously. Jason placed the pill firmly in my hand, sighing as he drained his coffee cup. I must be parched, he said, relieved. It takes a weight off my shoulders. As I stared at the pill in the palm of my hand, I reflected on who I would like to spend a peaceful retirement with. My wife, Catherine. You're not a foolish man, Bob. You understand what I'm saying, right? Jason continued, arguing that given my history of taking lives, wishing for my own happiness now seemed audacious. The thought of forgetting my identity out of fear scared me, but pondering Catherine's safety, I realized that losing my memories might be a small price to pay. But I'm sorry, I can't do that, he said out loud. Come on, Bob. Once you've come this far, don't be afraid to live under constant surveillance. I don't want to lose Catherine, or even my memories. Expressing my trust in Catherine, even in the face of her lies, I decided to protect her at all costs. I don't know what this organization plans for us, but I will dedicate the rest of my life to it. Even with an almost immobile body and the lack of an arm, I will protect it until the end. Suddenly, Jason started vomiting, shocking me. Catherine remained calm. As I pondered my decision, she turned her gaze coldly to Jason. Your own medicine tastes like you, where did you get that? I asked. You don't need to know. You'd forget it even if I told you, Jason replied before succumbing to the pain and passing out after about 10 minutes. Catherine, who had remained silent, shed a tear. It's finally over, she said. I'll tell you everything. She explained that Jason wanted to test his drug, and an hour later, when he woke up not remembering who he was, I took him to a local police station, leaving the rest to the police. Catherine, who cleaned up Jason's mess, hoped that most of what he said was true, but some things were different. Apparently, she learned about my situation from her father. The organization initially wanted to use me in a support role after I was injured and no longer fit to be a soldier. However, John objected, eager to test his drug on me, suggesting erasing my memory and expelling me from the organization. Jason apparently had influential family members in the upper echelons of the organization, and due to their influence, his opinion was accepted. So I became a guinea pig to prove his drug effects. Just before ingesting it, I deftly crushed the pill in my hand and only drank half of the water. As I watched caffeine approach, weak and drooling, I took half the pill from my clenched hand. My consciousness clouded, and I looked at Catherine. She told me about her vow of revenge against Jason, revealing that her father also died due to Jason's malicious advice. Even after marriage, Caffeine considered forgetting everything and living in peace, but in her heart, she wished that I would not lose the spirit of revenge. She wanted us to face our enemy together, but the internal struggle tormented her. Finally, Catherine had the opportunity to invite Jason to our home and achieved her goal. I'm sorry for lying. You must be disappointed, But I just couldn't forgive you, especially Jason," Catherine admitted, offering the possibility of divorce. I replied that I didn't blame her for lying, and I didn't forgive Jason either. I explained that although I did not remember the emotions of the time I lost my right arm, I considered the treatment I received to be unforgivable. She was not part of the organization and only knew the details her father told her about how I was treated. Even with my only arm, I held Kathleen tightly, feeling her sobbing in my embrace, looking vulnerable. Jason's situation became news, but I maintained my silence, refusing interviews. After taking half a pill, I only lost my memory, while Jason lost all sense of identity. Catherine and I continued our healthy marital relationship, taking our long-awaited trip to Spain, enjoying every moment as a couple. Catherine expressed her enthusiasm in visiting all the countries in Europe, and even though it meant a journey over the years, she was willing to live a long life to see her smile. Hello Historeddit folks! Today we bring you an exciting story that involves secrets, betrayal, and a journey of self-discovery. The plot unfolds with the protagonist, Bob, discovering shocking truths about his past, involving a secret organization and his own marriage. Catherine, Bob's wife, reveals secrets that completely change his perspective, triggering a quest for revenge against Jason, who manipulated his memories. The story explores deep themes such as loyalty, forgiveness, and the search for a peaceful life. But I won't give spoilers here. Watch the full video to discover all the details of this incredible plot. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a naughty like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos. After all, here at Historeddit, the most surprising stories are always just a click away. Until next time, everyone.